mentioned Joseph Campbell as
Yeah.
part of the one of the books. I've heard a lot that the book, The Thousand Faces
Hero
Heroes,
with a Thousand
was
Faces.
one of
Yeah.
the foundational, yeah, is one of the foundational books that all Hollywood has been built upon of it. Is that actually true?
That is largely true, of especially when you're talking about Eurocentric stories. Asian and Eastern style stories have a different foundational basis, but that's one of the books that I think a lot of people use. It's the same ideas that a lot of um, between Joseph Campbell and Aristotle. Most of everything you need to know about writing for video games or comics comes from Aristotle's Poetics or comes from Joseph Campbell's Here with a Thousand Faces. And you can read it in other books like Blake Snyder's Save the Cat or any of the Sid Field guides to screenwriting or, even to a degree, there's this great book by Evan Skolnick, Video Game Storytelling, which is really great. But by and large, most stories you read are a character character is put in a situation where they're torn from their status quo, and then they're going to spend the entire time trying to get back to that status quo, and they're either going to lose something or they're going to gain something, and they're going to be torn from their status quo, and they're not going to want to go on an adventure because why go on an adventure? It's resources, it's time. But the more they refuse the call to adventure, the worse and worse things get for them, before finally there's nothing better. I like to use the metaphor about plumbing. You see a drip in your house, it's just a little drip in the sink, you're like, oh, that's nothing. And then it's constantly draining, and then the toilet overflows, and then the shower is flooded, and then you're like, okay,
Right.
well, I don't want to do those things. I don't really want to call the plumber. I don't want to call the plumber. But then suddenly your basement's flooded, and then your call to adventure is to pick up the phone and say, hey, can I have a plumber come in? And that's the call to adventure. It can happen anytime something takes you from your status quo, the status quo being your bathroom works perfectly fine, to then those slow changes of like a small drip might not mean anything, so you don't want to take action. But a bigger drip, a flood, all those things make you push you out of your status quo, which was not calling the plumber. The
Mhm.
plumber comes in. He's going to talk to his mentor, his Yoda figure, his Gandalf the Grey, and there's going to be an adventure of how do you get your house unflooded, and then eventually your house is restored and you're poorer, but maybe you have a new basement. That is a modern version, and a simple version and a mundane version of the same Campbellian journey. But you can apply the Campbellian journey to anything. You can apply it to Star Wars or The Hobbit or Merlin and King Arthur. There are lots of places you can apply it, but usually it's that pivotal mentor character and the hero's journey and the quest. And our job as narrative directors, and our job as comic book writers, and our job as storytellers is to make everything seem like I call it like 99% invisible. You should never see that I'm telling you the same story I've told you so many other times. My job is to hide it.
Right.
My job is to hide it. And sometimes characters die at the end of stories, but that doesn't mean that it's still not the Campbellian journey. You know, sometimes a hero will sacrifice themselves at the end because there's nowhere else for their story to go. Logan, the movie Logan, is a great
Yep.
example and it's a great movie, but it's a great example of the same thing. Logan is a taxi driver. He's retired. He's just like moving mutants back and forth. He's just a standard driver. And then his Gandalf the Grey, his Yoda, is Professor Xavier, who is mind is doing all sorts of crazy things. And then, he ends up getting stuck with X-23, and then he has to go do the whole process of like how we're taking you out of your zone of
Becoming a
comfort.
hero.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously he dies at the end, but the whole process is really important. But that structure of rising action, falling action, something happening within the first 17 minutes of the movie or 17 minutes of gameplay, or 17 pages of comic book, whatever. Like there are certain milestones, certain benchmarks that sort of determine where the rising action, falling action conflicts are going to be. But yeah, by and large, we're all trying to tell the same story, which is a character comes into the story. We are given the tools that we need to understand who they are. Poor farm boy, poor stable boy, poor, whatever it is, poor Steve Rogers in World War II. Like we are given all the tools to identify with characters because they reflect some element of us, like being weak or being poor or being put upon or being insulted, and then we watch as they gain strength and become more than who they are, and they go on their adventure and they come back and they return the town to glory, or they get the medals, or they lead the Avengers. But all that essence, we feel so invested because we've joined that journey with them. But our goal
Yeah.
is to disguise Joseph Campbell's journey with fantastical side characters and amazing locations and great funny dialogue and great supporting characters, exotic locales.
And the self-association fact,
Uh,
maybe, where
yeah,
most of the time people are associating like this is the hero that I am. It's more
right.
like Carl. I think, if I'm
Carl
not
Jung.
mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, Carl Jung. Joseph Campbell has been influenced by him, right?
No, the other
Because
way around.
it's
Joseph, they
Jung's
were
archetypes and individuation.
yeah, they were contemporaries. So they're
All
sort
right.
of, yeah, they sort of overlap. But yes, but yeah, a young and so it was Freud, Young and Campbell kind of go hand in hand because they sort of overlap a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, but absolutely, like what are the archetypes? So if you're the hero, the warrior, the mother, the maiden, the crone, like what is your journey and where are you in that process? And those are things I think about all the time, because every character in your story, even though we are seeing the main character, even though we're seeing Captain America or watching the Hulk or watching Superman, every character in a story should be the hero of their own journey. Everybody from Lex Luthor to Lois Lane to Jimmy Olsen to Perry White should have a narrative arc. Where do they start the story, and by the end of the story, do they get what they want? Does
Hmm.
J. Jonah Jameson finally get pictures of Spider-Man? Because that's
Right.
because Spider-Man sells paper. Get me pictures of Spider-Man. You know, but J. Jonah's problem is that pictures of Spider-Man. How do you do that? Well, you just fired your best photographer. But then his like I didn't ask for this picture. I don't want Venom. I want Spider-Man. Give me pictures of Spider-Man. You know what, Parker? You're fired. So then his story arc is pictures of Spider-Man sells newspapers. I don't want Peter Parker to go to the Daily Sentinel. I need to get him back. So what am I going to do? I'm going to give him less money, give him more money. I'm going to buy all these pictures, give him what he wants, then get pictures of Spider-Man finally, and then sell more newspapers. That's J.J. Jameson's narrative arc, right? But everybody in the
Right.
story should come in wanting something and leave with getting what they want, or not getting what they want because there's some trait within themselves that prevents them.